Why did every room echo with love, except mine? That was the only thought circling in my mind as I sat beside my dying husband. For 7 days straight, room 314 became my entire world. The vinyl chair dug into my back. The air always smelled, faintly of antiseptic and wilted flowers, and the only sound that kept reminding me I was still breathing was the beeping of Carlton's heart monitor. He didn't move. He hadn't opened his eyes in a week, but I stayed. I held his hand. I whispered stories from our youth. I didn't cry. Not yet. Why did no one come to say goodbye to him? Down the hallway, room 312 was loud again. Someone was laughing. A child screamed with delight. Balloons bobbed around. Chairs scraped the floor as more visitors arrived. Yesterday, I counted 12 people crammed in there. A full celebration because their grandfather had blinked after being unconscious. And here in our room, there was just me, Carlton, and a machine that kept him tethered to this world. How did we raise a family that forgot us? The doctor had stepped in that morning. Mrs. Patterson, he said gently, have you managed to reach anyone? That question was a knife to my chest. I gave him the same answer I'd given for the past 3 days. They're coming, I whispered. They live far. It was a lie, a painful, hollow lie. I had reached out. I had called. First, I phoned Mark, my only son. Dad's had a stroke, I said. The doctors don't know if he'll make it. He paused, then told me about deadlines, projects, that if things got really serious, he'd try to fly in. Got really serious? His father was unconscious, fading away. Was that not serious enough? Do people change? Or do they just reveal who they always were? Sandra, my daughter, had been even colder. Mom, I can't just drop everything. Flights cost money. Besides, Dad's a fighter. He'll be fine. She hadn't even asked which hospital we were in. That was 5 days ago. She never called back. I looked around our room. Blank white walls. One window that stared into a parking lot. One empty chair that should have held one of our children. No flowers. No cards. Not even a nurse stopped by unless it was for Carlton's meds. I squeezed his hand again. His skin was cold, thin, almost translucent, but I could still feel the rough texture of his calluses. He was a builder. He built homes with those hands. He raised a family. He gave his life for them. If love is a legacy, what happens when no one remembers yours? I whispered, I'm here, sweetheart. I'm not leaving. His fingers didn't twitch. His eyes didn't open. But something in the silence told me he heard. Or maybe that was just me hoping. Outside, laughter echoed again. Someone was singing happy birthday. And as I sat in that cold, lonely room, holding the hand of the only man who ever loved me truly, I realized this is how love sometimes ends. Not with a crowd, but in silence. What could he possibly want me to find after his death? The question echoed louder than the silence in the hospital room. Carlton passed away at 3:17 a.m. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat there, holding his hand long after the machines went. Still, it was Dr. Ross who placed the envelope in my hands. He asked me to give you this, he said softly. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The note inside read, I'm glad to have you here. Open the safe. Everything will make sense. We hadn't used that safe in over a decade. It was tucked behind the old cedar closet in our bedroom, hidden beneath boxes of Christmas ornaments and forgotten coats. I hadn't touched it since we stored away our mortgage papers. But Carlton had remembered, and suddenly, that line, it'll all make sense, felt heavier than anything he ever said while alive. What secrets was he hiding from me? And why now? I unlocked it with the same rusted key we'd kept taped behind the headboard for years. Inside was a leather-bound journal and a small stack of folded documents. At first, it looked ordinary, but as I opened the journal and read the first entry, my heart stopped. Everly, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry. I should have told you earlier. I just wanted to protect you from the truth. Not from life, but from them. Every line felt like a confession. Carlton had secretly cashed out his pension not because we needed it, but because Mark did. Back when Mark's business was on the verge of collapse, Carlton paid his debts, kept his company afloat, and told me it was bad timing in the market. The journal detailed every transfer, every call, every time our son had asked for money and Carlton quietly gave, How much of our lives had been sacrificed without my knowing. Sandra's section came next. Carlton had paid for her daughter's private school tuition twice. And when her youngest was hospitalized for a rare lung condition, it was Carlton's emergency fund, the same one meant for our retirement trip to Ireland, that covered the bills. Sandra never thanked him. In fact, she asked for more the following year. I didn't tell you because I knew it would hurt. One page read, "You loved them with a blind heart. I couldn't let you see how little they gave in return. I sat on our bed, numb, the journal trembling in my hands. The same hands that had built a family from scratch. Carlton had borne all this silently. Shame, sacrifice, and heartbreak, all to shield me. Did they ever love us? Or did they only love what we could give them?" I flit to the last page. His final words tore straight through me. "I did it all for them. I just hope, when I'm gone, they'll finally understand what love looks like." And in that moment, I cried not for the men I lost, but for the truths I never knew while he was still alive. What kind of child buries a father? And asked about real estate before grief? The church was quiet, save for the hollow shuffle of feet and the soft, respectful murmur of strangers. I sat in the first pew, Carlton's photograph resting beside. The urn, he didn't want a casket. He'd said, "Burn the shell. What mattered went with me." But the people who mattered most to him in life, they were late, as always. Why did they come now, when it no longer mattered? Mark arrived first, adjusting his blazer like he was stepping into a board meeting, not his father's memorial. Sandra came 15 minutes later, clutching a designer bag and avoiding my eyes. No tears, no apologies, only rehearsed condolences and shallow embraces. Then came the question, the one that would end whatever thread of patience I had left. "So, Mom, what's the plan with the house?" No mention of their father, no memory shared, just numbers and property. Can grief rot fast enough to smell like greed? I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached into my purse and pulled out the leather-bound journal Carlton had kept hidden, the one I found behind the safe, next to our wedding. Photos and his life insurance files. I placed it on the pew between us. "Read it." That's all I said. They flipped through the pages, their eyes widening with each line. Carlton's words were raw, brutal, honest. He wrote of every dollar he sent Mark when his startup was failing. Every private school bill Sandra couldn't cover. Every sleepless night. Every lie told to protect them from knowing how deeply they had hurt him. Why did he choose silence when they chose absence? Page after page, his handwriting carved guilt into their faces. The man they'd forgotten had spent his final years sacrificing what little he had left, not just money, but pride, dignity, health. And when Carlton wrote, "I don't blame them, but I wish they had called," I saw Mark flinch. Sandra whispered, "We didn't know." I looked at her not with anger, but with the tired truth of someone who had survived far too much. You don't get to do better now. That chance died with your father. How do you make peace with someone who took the truth to the grave? 6 months later, I stood on the edge of the cliffs of Moher in Ireland, Carlton's dream destination. He'd always wanted to come, to feel the wind of the Atlantic and hear waves that spoke only in echoes. I came for him, but I stayed. For me, I sent Mark and Sandra a postcard. No apology, no bitterness, just one sentence. "I spent my life protecting you. Now I live for me." And for the first time in decades, I wasn't waiting for a call. I wasn't waiting for forgiveness. I wasn't waiting at all, because some chapters don't end with closure, they end with choice. And I had finally made mine. Have you ever held on to someone longer than they held on to you? If this story touched something deep in you, drop your city in the comments. I want to see how far Carlton's legacy reaches. And if you've ever been forgotten by the people you never forgot, you're not alone. Subscribe, because the truth we hide deserves to be told. Turn on the bell. Another story is coming, and this one might be yours.